Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 7th and 8th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline Comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Creating beyond calculation, beyond politics, and beyond the big two. Welcome, Silverliners, to the wonderful world of Wednesday Wham. I'm your host, Dean Zachary, and we're joined tonight by what looks like a full house and a couple of special guests. We have Barbara J. Kelberg, the Empress of the Inks, Rob Davis, the Paragon of Pencils, the Superior Skeptic, now known as the Contrarian, Aaron, the Contrarian Humphrey. The Wizards of Wordplay are both here, Rory Boyle and Scott Wakefield, and two special guests, Todd and Scott Housel, who are creators of the mysterious and compelling KuMighty universe. So we're going to be talking to them about that tonight. And welcome, everybody. Welcome, Scott and Todd.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's good that you're here. We're gonna just get right into it. I want to say that the reason we have the honor of hosting these two creators is because of my co-host Scott Wakefield, who will be referred to from now on as Swake, so as not to confuse him with the other Scott.
Thank you,
On
Dean.
the program. So having brought these two gentlemen in for this hour and a half of verbal torture, I'm going to turn this over to you for a while, Swake. So
thank you, Dean, and I am very honored to take the helm here tonight and to have our guests, Scott and Todd, who are just down the road from me, hailing from Western New York, the Rochester, New York region, and Scott has traveled around. Literally around the globe to be here tonight because you are stationed or work overseas, and you guys have come up with a incredible. I think that Aaron might be sawing something in half, or Aaron, you got some squeaky hinges, some squeaky hinge there. We can.
Yeah, it's cat emergency stuff.
Oh, yeah. Trap door. You had to go feed it.
Throw some food down.
You had a catastrophe?
No, more like the cat bringing food up.
Yep.
Oh, nice. See, we're all professionals here.
Yeah, we're keeping it professional.
This is the top shelf show here.
Scott and Todd have created, I want to give them as much time to talk because I am privy to the expansiveness of this story world. And our topic tonight is world building. And because these guys have spent more than a decade creating their KuMighty world, and I don't want to steal from them. I want to open it up and have them start with where the story idea came from, and then how it has progressed, however specific you want to be with your ideas. If we have questions along the way, we'll chime in, but we want to let you have the chance to give us where the idea came from and how it's grown and changed. And I know it's had different incarnations along the way. So go for it.
Yeah. I'll let Todd, I'll have him open up, give you the history on where we started from, the kernel of our idea and how it evolved from there, and the other team players that we brought in that had far more industry experience with world building and with the comic industry and game industry than we did, because literally we were, total outsiders, rookies to the whole process. So it was a big learning curve. So Todd, tell them about where we started around 2010 with.
Well, and I'll go a little further back than that. We really started early 1980s. Think Saturday morning kung fu theater and late night Dungeon and Dragon type of weekends.
Yes.
So when we were
weekend.
kids, we were all about the strategy games, kung fu theater, all this. So so we were always creative. Always, we always talked. And about 10, 12 years ago, I guess, when my brother was first living in Japan, his first stay in Japan in Hokkaido, we were talking one day just about our kids and about what they were into, what they were interested in at the time. And one of the big things was Pokemon and trading cards and, Samurai Jack. And so, these were kind of the ideas that were rolling around at the time. And then we said, hey, we could do that. Rookies, we think, oh yeah, that should be easy. Yeah. We're creative. So we, just started talking, trading ideas back and forth. And, actually the name KuMighty is actually the seed of that was actually kumite, sparring in Japan. So, and we kind of stretched out and said KuMighty. So that's
interesting.
So that's where the name KuMighty came in. And, as we started building the story, because he was living overseas, we were into mythology, into, martial arts from around the world. We started building this world that had, and we built the characters specifically. I think that was like a big interest, building characters around all the different martial arts from all over the world, and where they were from. We tied in the mythology from that era, and just started weaving these ideas together. You get on this stream of consciousness, you're just talking about ideas, and that's kind of where the idea started. And then when we started getting serious, we started putting pen to paper and writing ideas down. And
this was focused when we were driving towards a collectible kind of card game. So we had some differentials we wanted to throw in there is some innovation beyond kind of like playing the typical Magic the Gathering or Pokemon. So we came up with the premise of the game, since it was a collectible card game, and you've got character sets and locations and all that kind of stuff, and that's what Todd was describing, that we started developing these characters, these different locations, and each one of those characters had different qualities with regard to fighting and performing within a game. So
we knew it was a collectible card game. We started doing research on that industry, and we said, "Oh, look at the Godfather of collectible card games, Richard Garfield. Hey, he looks pretty successful. Let's see if we can get in contact with him." So I started making calls, and we finally did. I found a woman. I think this might have been early LinkedIn. I found a woman that
probably MySpace, right?
Yeah. I found a woman that had worked. We put something together. We found out they had worked together at some point in their career, had a connection. So I reached out to her, and with our idea, and then she got back to me a couple weeks later and said, yeah, Richard and Scaffy Lives would like to talk to you, like to present the idea. So we go, okay, cool. So we presented the idea. It had a twist on it outside of the collectible card game. And, Richard loved the idea. So we started working with them, building the game, the mechanics of the game. And actually they helped with some of the character building, like some of the martial arts and some of the ideas around the characters. So it was neat working with them and their creative ideas. And, and Richard was very much probabilities and mathematics and game design. So it was kind of cool with that sense. But as we go down the road of working with these guys and getting the game hammered out and started to create the artwork for this, we reached out to a studio in, where was it?
Singapore.
Yep.
Imaginary Friends,
where we started getting artwork created for this. And I'd say we're 75% of the way through developing the game. And talking to Richard and Scaff, they said, what really makes these, they said, have you thought about what's going to really make this successful? We were like, we figured, having you guys attached to it should be a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, right.
They said, well, they said, why Pokemon was so successful? Because they had a cartoon. And they had a story world. There was more to it than just a game and mechanics. So we were like, then we started, over the next month or so, we're talking and brainstorming, and Scott had read an article. It was Starlight Runner,
yep.
Jeff Gomez, and he was talking about world building. And this was when the collective journey wasn't the key phrase. It was more transmedia, is what they were calling it back then. And he was flying all over the world, putting on, speeches about transmedia and teaching people how to create stories. And then Scott found this article. So we started talking and
reached out to Starlight Runner and said, hey, we got a game, but in the meantime, during it, we put together kind of a summary of what we believe the story world could consist of, more backstories on the characters to give them more personality and more meaning within the game, and then we set up a meeting and pitched it to Jeff Gomez, Fabian Nasicia, and the rest of the Starlight Runner team, and it helped with our connection to Richard Garfield and Staff Elias because of Pokemon Magic the Gathering, because coincidentally Jeff Gomez back in the day worked with Magic the Gathering property.
Some of the early artwork and story building was Jeff Gomez when he had worked with them, and we didn't know that, but it was a real nice hook. Really got Jeff and Starlight Runner interested. And, I think you probably know Starlight Runner. They're responsible for some great properties from Halo. They've done even some Pirates of the Caribbean story building. James
Cameron's
Avatar.
Yeah. So they've had a pretty good track record in story building. And we said, that's exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah. We need to, in describing the story to them. So they really, that hit home. They really loved what we put together and the opportunity to expand on that universe. So one of their fortes, and what they did with Disney and some other properties, is they said, we want to team with you, and we want to build a mythology Bible that will be the all known, all be universe for KuMighty. And with that, we still needed to fill in some of the story elements, like, let's describe the planet. What's the relationship between humans and these anthro species? And then that's where we started just evolving the story to fill in those gaps and to make it more interesting.
So if I may jump in just to ask a question here, as you were building this, it sounds like, in the beginning, obviously, game mechanics plays a large role as your template because it has to work like Magic the Gathering and so on, and the Pokemon game. But then I'm getting the impression, though, it's a vastly richer foundational universe than even many that we've seen created before. So when you're creating this, are you thinking there'll be feature characters and feature storylines within, like, that will be in the forefront, and then the background, of course, will be the universe? Do these storylines, are they closed or are they wide open? In other words, are they part of gameplay? How do you resolve those kinds of issues?
So it's a great point, because they were first based on kind of bringing about the gameplay that we wanted to have players undertake. But then, we started going outside those barriers and really opening it up to a more, more story arcs and more characters. We built the cadre of characters out to dozens. And then all the backstories that are interconnected on this planet, and then how those characters connect to Earth and human characters that we have, and the commonality between the mythologies that are on Ishara, which is the planet that the Anthros live on, and humans on Earth. So that's so what we started doing as well is, one will notice throughout the characters' bios, throughout the different storylines, story arcs, we have touches of all different examples of different mythologies, not just Sumerian, not just Greek, but probably probably up to about 20 different mythologies that are around Earth. We have hooks into those with regard to character names. People will recognize that if they're a student of mythology, and they'll recognize some of our names as being tied to a mythological character of a certain culture.
Can I ask a question about that? So, what about with the cultures that have such similar pantheons as like Northern Europe, Germania, Poland versus Scandinavia? Because obviously the myths would have carried out, because like Woden on mainland Europe and Odin in Scandinavia. What if there's such a similar crossover, or Zeus to Jupiter? Like, how do you separate the characters, or do you find a way to fit them all together?
Yeah, so there's a common theme that we decided to use is kind of like the connection point is it's actually in Indian mythology from King Asoko, with regard to the legend of the nine unknown men and the mythology behind that. So we use that as the immediate tie, but then we go back to kind of like what a lot of consider the root of human existence is Sumerian cultures and mythologies.
Yeah. So you'll see a lot of symbols in our game, like in our logo. There's symbols from all over the world, but it's all the number 9.
Oh,
yeah, very significant number within our
in fact,
story.
Ku is the number 9 in kanji, I believe.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Japan.
Can we show Barb or Dean? Can we show some of the website while they're talking? Because that's good stuff. Because the imagery is really cool.
Yeah, I've shared the link, Barb. If you can bring up that just the quick trailer, you can see or the tone. I don't know if it'll share, but we can certainly try. If not, we can go to stills.
Which logos are you using? The so we have we have a couple different. Oh yeah, so you can see.
Yeah, this was the very first video we put together.
That's really cool.
So you see the that symbol right there.
Yeah.
All those the symbols around there are all the number 9 from different ancient languages.
Yeah. Oh, current languages
cool.
too. So that video it really illustrates where we're starting within our story universe. Because another thing, so Starlight Runner did part of the mythology Bible is the timeline of KuMighty. So we've got an ancient past in our story, and we've got a future, and we're kind of starting right in the middle. And within that middle, we're also starting within the middle of the time frame that this first series will be based on.
Kind of like the New Hope for Star Wars. They started in the middle. A big thing with Starlight Runner was always distant mountains. They always wanted to create the stories that have the distant, that drop the seeds of the distant, the stories that will be to come, that, just hints of them. Just like, with Star Wars, Rogue One. That was just one little, I think, sentence in the movie that created that whole, it was at distant mountains is what they refer to it as. And that's, they made sure that our mythology Bible has a lot of that in there.
On the site, there's a scroll, and Barb is going to share that in a moment. But can you talk a little about what we're seeing on the scroll? It may be what you're mentioning now.
Yes, that's a good illustration of kind of like where we're starting at within the storyline.
Okay.
Hang on here.
Yeah, we're working.
Sending these to me at the very last second here.
Oh,
okay.
yeah. I just found it. Now, what this does is this gives us sort of a historical context. When in the history of this, where do we jump in to the flow of the storytelling? And from the preview, it looks as if we're entering near the end. Ashara is in peril of destruction, right? So we're heading toward their apocalypse.
Yes.
Is that fair to describe it that way?
That's absolutely fair. So you see the 3 different reigns. So the reign of the Ku, that's with this scroll depicts what's in the middle portion of our overall timeline. So there's even more before this, more beyond this. But we are starting issue 1 of this series. So we're starting, it's basically between the 5th formation of the collectors, and there is still part of the 4th, the Anthro Wars, that is still ongoing.
Okay.
So where issue 1 starts is basically right between those.
Okay.
And in a nutshell, so as I mentioned, going back to the legend of the 9 unknown men. So there's good suspicion that those could be what we're referring to as this master race called the Ku.
Okay.
And if you see on that the first side, the reign of the Ku, they start out. So it looks as if maybe they're sort of not terraforming the planet, but they're populating the planet.
Okay.
And they start off with a first run of species called the Naga, and they're more reptilian type of. And for those who know mythology and Naga and the reptilian type of anthro species that will bring to mind, that's exactly what we were creating there. They, as you can see on the second era, they find that the Naga, they're not compliant with maybe the expectations the Ku had for what they wanted the Naga to do, whether it was more like a slave type race or something. But there will be some disruption there on Ashar because the Nagas, there's a mutiny, and there's an overthrow of that mutiny by the Ku, and they created a second species called the Anthros, and that's where the characters that you've seen depicted they're considered the Anthros, and they're split up between 4 different subspecies: the anthromals, which are more like the typical mammals, the anthroreps, anthrofibs that are more amphibian, and then the anthroaries, which are more aviation type of creatures.
Mm-hmm.
But the Naga were the precursor to all them, and almost like the prodigal son, they were shunned.
Yeah, and there'll be some backstories, and this kind of will come into play with some of the Anthro backstories, where when they were created, the KuMighty needed to form teams to go and basically hunt down and get rid of the rogue Nagas that kind of evaded some of the exile measures that the KuMighty took to get rid of the pesky Nagas. And then once that was done, everything seemed settled into a very peaceful planet with harmony, balance, until we get to the second reign, when the KuMighty all of a sudden vanished for some reason that the story will reveal way down the road.
Okay.
And then because of that, like any type of power vacuum that occurs within any species, there is a in this case there was the collapse of the Anthro society and hierarchy and how things were peaceful once.
Right. Civil war, internal turmoil. So it was just
very, very, very common theme on what happens when the rule disappears. And that's where we're at now, because then when the Anthros started vying, certain Anthros rose up and started vying for power, domination, and that's where the one hero that will be recognized, Panku, rises up for the couple reasons: to bring peace back to his planet, and then secondly, and probably more importantly, to figure out what happened to the KuMighty, because there's a big threat that looms on the Anthraces, because they don't procreate like the Naga did. So the KuMighty thought ahead about how do we control species more. Well, we won't allow them the ability to procreate. So the Anthros see this as a big problem now, because once that mechanism to repopulate their species is gone, then they have a threat of extinction on the horizon. So another thing that looms over Panku's head. So he realizes he cannot do this alone. So he gathers together a very select group of other Anthros with a number of different skill sets and experiences in order to go on this expedition to find a number of known and relics, and some relics that are still seen as more legend, but
KuMighty derived relic.
Yes. So these are artifacts from the KuMighty that he believes that, and he kind of has some knowledge that could be in effect to mitigate some of the war and conflict, because if these relics get in the wrong hands, any particular evildoer could take over the planet and dominate. And he realizes that, so he's trying to grab up these relics with his group, who are called the Collectors, and then safe keep these relics, and also try to use these relics to figure out what happened to the KuMighty. Because some of the relics, we split it up to where we say a relic is something that will provide a power or some type of capability for the bearer of that relic, and then artifacts are more of the written record or some type of written knowledge of something that is critical to know in either to use a relic or to provide a clue or some type of direction or signpost to another means to being able to use a relic or to understand maybe how the coup used them, and maybe that could lead them to the coup.
Yeah.
Just a quick question here. So it's almost a twofold quest: find the relics, understand the relics, and then learn how to use the relics to prevent the collapse and destruction of their planet. Is that fair?
That's a good summary of everything.
Okay, and what you mentioned, Panku being the leader of the collectors. I'm curious, what anthro species is that character, and is he featured in this group illustration?
He is. He's on the website, but he is the character all the way on the left behind the elephant character.
Oh, I see him. Yeah.
Yep. So that is Panku.
Okay. So is it fair to say that invokes imagery of a minotaur?
Probably not him.
Okay.
But if you go to who is his chief, like his master at arms and his security, if you go to the character next to the rhino,
okay,
the two swords.
He's a bull, so he is one of 9 of the Minotaur type characters that are within the story. The other one is the key antagonist, and we've got featured art of that character as well, and he'll be front and center in issue 1. So issue 1 will you'll see Panku and his collectors, and then you'll also see Apophis, who is the one that is also has a connection to Panku, and that will be revealed. And he's the one that is also seeking those relics, but for a different purpose.
Okay.
You guys have like looking at this. It's almost, Tolkien-esque with your lore and how you're adapting it, and then the depth with which you've created this world and creating these characters as the foundation. I really like that. I really like character-driven, deep, three-dimensional characters to drive the story. And you've created this foundation of amazing characters with stats to then build your story world on. It's a very cool thing. We deviated from your timeline here, and you guys had been working with Starlight Runner to create your world, to create your characters, and pick up back there if you don't mind.
Sure. So yeah, we started. We developed the characters with a kind of a shallow backstory at first, because that was primarily we were just driving it, getting a number of characters for the game property, because that was one of the requirements we were trying to achieve, is a lot of characters, because that is something that our game used in addition to some.
And we have a catalog. The characters we see here is a small sampling because of the game that we had created. We have probably 100 characters, I bet. Yep. And we've created small stories for each one of them, but like every myth Bible that you create, the Starlight Runner, it's an evolving document where you'll build out backstories as they present themselves. Sometimes you're telling a story, and then a character will start to grow with that story. Just that's the myth Bible is the version 1, and then we'll keep building as the story builds.
And I started this, like Todd mentioned, in my first time living in Japan, where I dove into the Japanese mythology, and was able to extract a lot of very interesting info from that experience. And then from Japan, we moved to Germany, and Germany, I got to travel around Europe and Africa and the Middle East and such. And all during those travels, same thing, very interested in mythology, different cultures, and just started collecting different information about those mythologies, and then enveloping them into the backstories and into the different characters, and then just started trying to tie different elements of those mythologies together. And then also connecting that to our fictional Anthro Ishara world. And that was definitely a progression over probably about 4, 5, 6 years, just doing that. So it was a lot of time just developing those storylines.
And you'll see here on the logo here, you'll see there is a bit of science and sci-fi in it. That's actually a triple-stranded DNA right there.
Oh,
go back up.
So there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I see that.
That will come into play. And as you see, these are genetically produced life forms that the KU have made. But there's a genetic connection with our human characters that will come into play series down the road, and that's a significant. There's a significant reason for that.
You talk about in your travels being kind of singularly focused. I kind of like I like that, knowing. So and Rory, I know is the same way. Rory and I will be with Steam Patriots. He'll be somewhere historical or whatever. Something happened here in 1770, whatever, and he'll send me a text message. We have to include this somehow, and 99% of it doesn't get included. but it's fun in this story world creation, like gleaning just little bits as you go along. And you guys have what's that?
We've been there. Just you grab little pieces and you put them in there in the mix. Maybe they make the final cut or not, but they were neat to throw around while we were
exactly. Or you try to, even if it can't be in there, maybe you just that nod, that hint to something. But what it really does
real
is
deep cut.
Well, yeah. What it does is it makes your world more real. And that's what we're like the detail. You're living in it, and all your readers can those fine details. I mean, it's the difference between like a Saturday morning cartoon versus something like a Disney cartoon, and the amount of effort that's put into the art and the characters and the facial expression. We're talking just visual. Just those details bring everybody in, and you guys, you're living your world, and it's fun as a creator. I wish everybody out there who could write a story. I mean, some people think we're crazy, which we are, but living in a story world, and you live there. Your brain will just go there, and you imagine what your characters are doing, and how like the setting you are in, how that could be translated into a feeling or a scene or a realm. It's fun. And you guys clearly like the depth that you've gone to create this. So
wake up in the middle of the night and jot down a note.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And then you wake up in the morning like, what the?
You guys can't probably see this on the small screen, but each one of these characters has a little write-up underneath them, and they're so well thought out. And, it really explains each of their personalities and a little bit of back history. How many characters do you have altogether?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've got probably close to
easily over 100.
Geez, because there's only 9 here.
and not everyone's, they're not all fleshed out like some of the ones that we're using. But, because we started out as, working in the game format, we had to have so many. So we we're able to dig into mythologies from all over the world and then create characters. We had like a character design philosophy where we said, okay, we're gonna look at all the martial arts from around the world, the ones we like, create the character from that martial arts, and then have a mythology from that same region and apply that into the backstory of the character. Yeah. And then also their garb and their weapons that they use are all used from either that mythology or that martial arts.
Yeah, and in many cases, the animal that's used
is from that region.
Region too. Like Chango, for example, seems like one of the favorite characters of the fans that follow on LinkedIn is
the rhino.
Yeah, so that's mythology from Africa, and his garb, his martial art, all that stuff was based on that.
Yeah, and his wrapped hand there is an actual, I guess they're martial arts. That's how they fight. They wrap their hand, and I think they put maybe glass, and I don't know. It's
wow.
Yeah, that was a traditional martial arts. How they use that, and obviously we use because it was from South Africa. We used the black rhino, and then we used the martial art from that region of Africa, or that fighting style. They weren't always martial arts; Could have been a fighting style.
And that was the formula when we were developing it for the game, but it seemed to work well as we started really developing the overall story and expanding on the backstories and creating the overall story that scroll, that timeline is all based on.
Within the discipline of Chinese Kung Fu, there are styles based on animal forms. I'm sure you guys sort of chose some of the Chinese characters based on that, maybe, or did you talk a little bit about that?
Yes.
Yep, we did. So we do have a character that's not shown, but another character developed, and it's like crane and tiger form, some type of kung fu fighting styles. And to your point, we use those and developed characters that kind of depicted those martial arts and the martial art and the animals that kind of like were the martial arts used as a fighting style.
It comes to mind in karate and Shotokan, the symbol is a tiger. Did you have anything specific in the Japanese martial arts style, a character that was chosen?
For the Japanese, we've got a number of characters based on some Japanese. None with that particular martial art symbol that you mentioned with the tiger. But we do have characters that are based on some of Japanese mythologies.
Yep.
Okay, interesting. Fascinating.
So you guys, you developed this entire world, starting really with the characters. I mean, the kernel of the idea of your world, and then your characters, and then with the card game through Starlight Runner, and then what did they do from there? And then what happened after that? You worked with them. I didn't want to cut that part off, but
that's interesting. So, Starlight Runner, they have properties and with other firms, and what they love KuMighty, and we tried to take it to certain publishing houses, and they presented the idea. They sat down with their Hollywood agent, who is the United Talent Agent, UTA. So they worked with them. So they met with a lot of different people in Hollywood. A lot of people loved the idea, but they just didn't, it just wasn't didn't hit the right timing, whatever it may have been. And I remember one thing Mark Pensavalli from Starlight Runner said to me, because don't get too discouraged. It took Spielberg 20 years to make Lincoln.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's not making me feel better. But
you just have to get turned down 100 times, and
we said it wasn't going to take us 10 years to get ours out, but 11 years
right.
later.
Yeah. So we've knocked on a lot of doors, had a lot of meetings with toy companies, and everybody loves it, but just didn't love it enough.
And
where they wanted to do the big investment. Yeah, because it's a big investment.
Yeah, and therein lies why we kind of determined. We said, hey, a good method of entry is the comic book, because of the characteristics of where different producers are. They can take a comic and they've got a lot of flexibility and ability to adapt that comic into what they see as a film or
and that was always in the plan, anyways. But it was more after we got some of the other things going. But
so a lot of times, if you want somebody to pay attention to your project, you do an elevator pitch. If you had 20 seconds to pitch this to somebody, how would you do it?
Oh boy.
I think we actually
have a pitch Bible.
Yeah.
That we've taken. It's not a 20-second pitch Bible.
You've got the length of a couple of floors on an elevator to give this pitch to somebody you found yourself.
It's a small building. Very small.
So, one of our tags is Earth's true history is disguised by mythology.
There you go.
We use that.
That's good.
We use that as a premise that the way we as humans right now, we read our mythological stories of the gods and heroes, and it's not what we think it is. And that's where we bring in a shower behind the scenes and the coup and how the mythology, going back to our Theseus and Minotaur scene, that will show that exact statement, why that will ring true within the KuMighty story world.
Right.
Could one understand it as the true stories behind Earth's mythologies?
Yep, that's it.
Absolutely.
Yep, it's a good way of putting it.
Okay.
I was going to say we actually have a novel that we had created for the story, but it takes in our timeline. It takes us.
Yeah, that's fast forward the next series.
Right. Starlight Runner took, so we created a novel. They took it to like Scholastic, Random House, and Random House was interesting. They said they told us that we really want to have. They were really looking for something with a girl lead.
Right.
Yeah, that seems to be a thing nowadays, and I really don't get it.
Yeah, and this is now a few years back. I think it might have been, maybe it was right during the Hunger Games, or right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I mean, I'm all for women protagonists.
Me too. Absolutely.
I'm a huge fantasy fan, and I listen to audiobooks and read fantasy books, and I would say right now it's running about 80% female protagonists to 20% male protagonists. And I like a 50-50 mix. I don't
Me
want,
too. I do too.
Yeah.
I like to be able
Like
to
the
choose.
real world.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
The real world.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. The great thing is, so we said, hey, that plays well with us, because on the human side, we've got Cooper and MK. MK is one of our female protagonists, and she is right up there with Cooper, but they saw Cooper as maybe the more leading element in our story. They were always equals in terms of the value they brought to the story and the significance of what their characters were within the KuMighty story. So they requested a retool of the novel one, and that was something that was being worked, and we said, well, let's push the pause button on that, and we can get to a area on the anthro side, which we do still have a very good mix of female and male type anthro characters that are significant within the story, and going with anthro type of characters, it's always nice because you don't have a lot of other of those type of demographic things that you need to make sure is worked in.
They can be whatever you imagine them.
Right, right. It definitely made it easier, but I still love the first story that we did on it, and I think we had like MK, our female character, was a strong character, but they want whatever for whatever reason it didn't play out, and that's where we are today, and we're that's how it goes in working with those big houses. They set the narrative for a lot of the industry. So
yeah, and with just life and us, because this was kind of a hobby to us during this whole time. It's something that we wanted to take serious because we really loved it, and we still love it. But there was a lot of long pauses in between some of the
life got in the way.
Yeah,
I hear you there.
I moved overseas 4 different times between that time frame when we started to where we're at now.
Raised kids, because it's
so when you guys find your rich patron, please let us know.
We're looking for a sugar daddy
because we really.
I'm looking for an old rich widow with a bad cough.
Yeah, I was talking to Elon just the other day.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, it's been a while.
Well, the lottery, the Powerball is up to 700 million.
Oh boy!
There you go. You can't win if you don't.
You can tweet them now.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yes, at Twitter.
I was going to ask you guys in terms of narrative. Obviously, game mechanics still play some level of priority in your strategy here. When someone is playing the game version, the game mechanics version, are the players allowed to play leading characters? They play peripheral characters, both. How does that work together? The closed narrative.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned. So the game has that's still on the shelf. It's 95% completed. But after we pushed the pause button on the game property, because we wanted to lead off with a story world, and build a fan base on that, and then bring the game in later.
And an interesting piece with the game and the game mechanics. The real hook that got Richard Garfield was we created a collectible card game like his, but we added an element to it, what we called a diceoid.
Okay.
And it was what do I have? Give me 1 second. I can show.
Yeah. They were actually little versions of the characters.
They're versions of like Chango, the characters we have in a story.
Okay.
And if you ever played what is that donkey game?
No. Oh,
D&D.
No, Pass the Pigs.
Pass the Pig. Okay.
Yeah. Oh man! Wow, that's with an oinking leaner or a leaning oinker. What's the?
Oh, that thing. Yeah.
So
that's an interesting game.
So you can't see it really here. Great on that. Oh, am I in front of?
Go up in the camera.
There you are.
Yeah.
That's Chango.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, I can see.
So this little what we call a diceoid, when you roll, part of the game was you like a collectible card game, but the one random generator for the game was you roll a certain number of these diceoids, and the way they land, they're all designed based on the probability of how they land. And the way they land will determine some of the outcomes of each play.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Richard Garfield loved the idea of using these characters, diceoids, to use as a random number generator for versus just using a dice, because you could just use a 6-sided dice, because these are designed to land in 6 different.
Wow.
6 different, they'll land on the head. They can land on.
How do you figure that out?
In the back. Well, a lot of trial and error. We work with 3D designers. We mold. We had one guy from the U.S. Mint, I think in Philadelphia, was one of our molders for a while, that was creating little characters, and we would sketch it up for them and say, we need this, and and when they were designing it, we'd have them. They give us it. We bring it back. We test it. The probabilities are off. Can you just tweak this arm down just a little bit, because we want it to tip on the head? We want 5% more probability of him landing on the head, or so. It was an exercise in tedious work. But it was cool. It was cool. They loved it, and they still work. It's just it's one of those things that's on the shelf right now, because
the main purpose as well is so Richard, Magic the Gathering or a lot of other collectible card games, if you got a very experienced player playing kind of a new player, they'll probably wipe them out every time, because they understand how to use the cards effectively and use them together to overcome their opponent. Well, this diceoid factor, this outside element that threw in another probability, could totally change the effects of
level the playing field a little bit.
He likes kind of like a Hail Mary type of thing.
Sure.
He liked it because it provided an element for a rookie player to actually defeat an experienced player.
And the toy factor, it's got a toy element to it, collectible toy element. I mean, we had so many of these made through one of the online, I can't remember. They make the 3D.
Cheez-Ix, dice makers? No.
Like Hero Forge kind of thing?
Hero Forge.
No, it's at New York City. They do 3D render. I can't. I'll remember it when we're done
at
talking.
2 a.m. You'll be.
I'll wake up and email this guy. Hey, I got it.
So this question speaks to both sides of that, the game side and the comic book universe side. As you've progressed along this journey of development, have you recognized any indicators that say you should do this side first or the other side first? You should do them both at the same time. Speak to us a little bit about timing and game versus comic, and which should come first, or does it matter?
We kind of boiled it down to where we're at right now, saying the comic, the story, and the introduction to characters and what they're going through, the planet, and the whole story world in general. We thought that was more important to bring to the fans or to viewers, to introduce them to KuMighty in that way, and then naturally evolve to bring in game properties and other type of media properties after that.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. Welcome, Roberta Conroy.
All right, start over. Roberta's here.
No. Don't mind me.
Hi, Roberta.
Hello.
Folks, for our viewers out there, we're in our last half hour. If you got comments and questions, please toss them up. Roberta, hi. We're talking with Scott and Todd Housel, the creators of the KuMighty, a expansive story world, and their subject tonight is world building. But we've of course we've zigged and we've zagged about character creation and all the things that come in. We could talk about this probably for weeks, because they have created quite the world, quite the story world that's immersive, and the characters, their main cast of characters, have a huge depth that really this world kind of feels kind of like a limitless world where you could just you could have this person's story, this character storyline, this storyline, that storyline, and when Barb asked you to distill it down to 20 seconds, that's tough.
That's real tough. The closest I got, Roberta, just for clarity, was what if Earth's mythologies had a true story behind them that took place on another planet. And we sort of gathered a lot of those true stories, and they became our mythology in terms of regional cultural mythology. So there's a little bit of Japanese, a little bit of Chinese, a little bit of Norse, a little bit of Greco-Roman, and so on and so forth. But it's very much based on martial arts. So that the name itself, KuMighty, is a play on kumite, which is a Japanese word for fight when you're about to fight in a contest. But that's just so tip of the iceberg compared to what these two gentlemen have educated us on the entire night. I just wanted to sort of find a quick way to bring you up to speed.
That was perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I appreciate that.
It's just a kernel. It's because this world, I love. There's Randy Ingermanson has this snowflake method that I've talked about before. That he starts with your elevator pitch there, your 20-second, your 15-word description, and then Randy's a physicist, and so he talks about probably all these numbers about creating these designs where you take a triangle and then on every flat side make a triangle and every flat side make it, and it becomes what you've created. You start with this one line, which I'm sure it wasn't how it worked in your brain because you originally came up with these ideas for characters.
Right.
Did you expect your world to get this big?
Not at first, because we had main characters that we developed the stories around, but then when we did move over to the comic side and we reflected back to, we've got like 100 different characters that we could work with, but how before there were a lot of more individual type of characters that didn't have any type of linkage to other characters, but we needed to start developing those type of linkages to create the story world on Ashara. That's difficult because we wanted to do it right, and that is still in the works actually, because we have other characters that will slowly play into the world and to the different story arcs. But originally, we had a handful of characters that we wanted to use for the base gameplay, because we only created it was card deck, so there had to be so many characters within that card deck, and they had different moves and things like that.
And we have spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets.
I can imagine.
Characters with their probabilities, with all their attributes.
Now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
I'm also the CFO. I'm an artist and the CFO of Silverline, so I spend a lot of time.
Spreadsheet is not my language.
Yeah, well, when you're working with Richard Garfield, that's your language.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes. I would have to pass that. Okay, have fun. What you guys have done though, and Dean talked about. Actually, were we live when Dean was talking about it? The modern situation, and I speak as if I have depths of knowledge, and I've been in the business for a long time, but the world we live in for creatives really is, unless you're a Stephen King or a J.K. Rowling, you've got to be everything. It's rare that the big guys pick you up and you have a publicist and you have marketing and you have the millions of dollars. Now you've got to do everything. And what they want is, they being publishers everywhere, far and wide, is they want a ready-made product. They want your fan base, which is like
built-in fan base.
Exactly. They want you to have your fan base when you don't even have a product out there, but they want that fan base. They want the followers. They want the story world. They want everything. So if they do have a publicist, they want what you guys have created. That's that folio. You could hand them a 3-ring binder, a foot thick, which you guys have, and you've done all the work, which is really amazing. And now it's going to be coming live. I want to get into plans for the future and what your plan is for a launch. I don't want to jump ahead if anybody on the stream wants to backtrack a little, but we're jumping ahead. We're at a point now where all of this is culminating, and your plan is to do a Zoop campaign. Zoop, I don't know how long they've been around because honestly, it wasn't until you guys mentioned Zoop that I had heard about it. But in September, when I was in Daytona, I mentioned Zoop a couple times because I was talking about KuMighty. And yeah, people say, "Oh yeah, I've heard of it. It seems to be catching some traction as a." Well, go ahead, describe what is Zoop and what's the plan for the campaign.
So Zoop, I ran across them and I can't remember how, but I found them and they are a comic graphic novel specific crowdfunding platform. So very focused. It's founded by two industry, experienced industry guys that stood this up. And since it focuses on comics, they also have a nice element where they can provide, unlike like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and some of the other platforms, they can provide packages to retailers too. So knowing that's significant plus for creators to get their books into comic shops, that's something that they have as a package offer during the crowdfunding campaign. So once, instead of going Kickstarter or we said let's go with the Zoop platform since it's more focused, and that's where we're at. We started talking to those folks at Zoop to get a campaign initiated. Now we're working on just building the critical mass we need before we want to launch. So we've been doing a lot of focused promotion through actually LinkedIn, primarily because we started there because we could build followers that were really focused on comics, or they worked in the comic industry, not just enthusiasts or readers. We've got close to 8,000 people that we can kind of reach out to through a post or messages. And that's where we've been promoting KuMighty over the last probably almost a year, just starting slowly with some drawings and concept art. And now over the last 6 months or so, I've been posting different characters, different locations with the artwork, but then also putting a more description of a backstory or what they're up to in terms of in this first series, and then also indicated some tie-ins between different characters during the post. So that seemed to resonate pretty well with all the folks coming back with comments and sending messages, asking more questions about the property and the characters and what we're all about and what our plans are in order to get a comic book out there. And
Zoop has been LinkedIn has been pretty successful for you.
It has been. It seems like it has been much more effective at getting an interest towards the KuMighty property. Instead of blasting stuff out on Twitter, this type of thing. So far that's where we're at. That's probably our primary presence in social media, is the LinkedIn.
More so than Facebook and Instagram.
It is at this time. It is
okay.
Because where we start out, because we also used the LinkedIn to find the talent that we needed. So our fantastic team of artists that are developing the interiors and the covers. I found all those through just corresponding with different talent on LinkedIn. That it was nice because I could see their work, and then we were able to communicate back and forth, and just finding the right fits for them and for us. So that was the other secondary purpose of really focusing on using LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, I feel like LinkedIn has already, it's kind of filters it down, and there's not as much action as Facebook. There's likes and all this, but it's not the quality. And you guys really, if folks out there go to LinkedIn, UGG Entertainment. You'll find their information. You can search KuMighty. We do have a small group on Facebook. Doesn't have a lot of people in it, but we're getting that core group of Facebook people. But go check out what they're doing on LinkedIn and see the art. If you guys want to talk about the artist, your main artist is phenomenal. The energy of each page. He does a fantastic job. Go ahead. I'll let you talk.
Yeah. So, that's been the biggest advantage is, like, to your point, where, because we were showing our artwork, there was artists that said, "Hey, I could really get into that. I really like what I see. I would love to draw or to be part of that project." And that was kind of like the catalyst to get the right people on board to really bring the KuMighty story to life in the vision that we kind of wanted.
There was one artist that sent in. So we're going to do the contest. Did you tell them about the?
Yeah, it's on LinkedIn. We've been promoting different ways to participate during the campaign. So we've got a cover art contest going on that could potentially result in a variant depending on how the campaign hits certain goals. So we've got about 8 different artists that have submitted cover concepts.
Some really cool.
And they'll be right alongside. We've got another well-known comic industry cover artist, John Boy Myers, who he's working up one of our variant covers. Whether it will be available during the Zoop campaign, that's still up in air depending on timing. So the opportunity that we're offering some of these other artists are to provide another variant in for issue 1 or issue 2. And that was a great way to really communicate with some like-minded, professionals out there and get more people interested in the property as well. So we'll be posting all their art, their cover art, up on the KuMighty website, so there could be a vote done by by fans and peers, and that will be the selection process. Say who's got the coolest cover. That could be potentially another variant. And Todd mentioned we got one today. It was like, wow, that is pretty awesome.
It was really awesome.
So that makes it fun. And I think when it boils down to it, the reason why we've been trudging through this journey for so long is because we're having fun. If we didn't have fun, we wouldn't be doing it. So we haven't.
Stop paying the bills.
Yeah, we haven't made a penny, but
right.
So it's obvious that we're having fun because we're committing our time and some financial resources and to move this along. And this is could be a result of those days in 3rd grade, in class, in math class, staring out the window, Star Wars or something,
right? Probably most of us on this live stream, our report cards came back with a pleasure to have in class. Daydreams.
Too much. I wanted to also ask you about your thoughts on crowdfunding platforms, and do you have a preference, and what are your thoughts on those?
Of what, the Indiegogo, Kickstarter?
Yeah, the standards, the Indiegogo, the Kickstarter, and various other, GoFundMe and so on.
Yeah, so like I said, we decided on let's go crowdfunding, and to rewind a little bit, we actually attempted to launch an Indiegogo campaign, same attempt. But we canceled it within like a week because there was a lot of things off and not prepared correctly. We're
rookies.
Yeah, the rookie effect. So
that's been our whole story. Everything we had to get in with Richard Garfield. Rookies. We don't know what we're doing, but they like the idea. So okay, let's ride along with this.
Even some of us who been in the comics industry for 30 years or more, the crowdfunding is a new thing for us. I mean, used to be our publishers took care of all this. DC and Marvel, you just turned in the work.
Yeah.
Now we're hoping that the main effect we hope for this, I know it's crowdfunding, and we want to get the funding so we can push forward with the production costs and just getting all that out of the way. But we really want to gain the fan base. We want fans to love KuMighty as much as we love it, and that's the main objective. Right. And that's the key effect that we want to get from the crowdfunding. So Zoop seemed like the logical choice there again, because there is a comic graphic novel focus. Even though Indiegogo and Kickstarter, they have a very huge presence in categories for those areas. Now Kickstarter, you got to hit the funding goal or it's a no-go. Mm-hmm. Indiegogo, you can have, there's different options, and there's aftermarket capability to continue a campaign of some sort, or after campaign type promotions. So they all have their advantages. Of course, Kickstarter and Indiegogo are seem more prominent right in the industry as a whole. But Zoop seems like they're catching up quickly.
In Indiegogo, I think a lesson we learned from that was when we put that Indiegogo project together, was I think it came across as almost a game. We were funding for a gaming project versus a comic book, and we were like, whoa. And then once we looked at it, we said, oh, maybe they're right, because we had a whole lot of detail, and maybe too much detail, I think. And I think some of the feedback was, oh, is this for a gaming? And then we're like, wow.
Yeah.
We kind of like we're funding for a game.
We found that Indiegogo is more graphic novel oriented, while Kickstarter is more comic book oriented and everything else.
Yeah. And we haven't done Kickstarter, but we're open to trying everything. Sky had found Zoop, and they said, well, it's focused on that. Maybe that's the play. Again, it's trial and error. I mean, that's been the story of our life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we have a multi-pronged strategy. We succeed to a certain extent on Zoop to launch the issue, to have an actual physical copy of the book. And then to expand beyond that, we could go to Kickstarter to get some more variants done, because, like I said, John Boy Myers, he's a well known with some really awesome cover art. He's the one that really provided some good guidance on after the first Indiegogo attempt that we incorporated as lessons learned to have a more defined Zoop campaign. So.
That's good advice. We're always looking for options for our crowdfunding our projects as well, and it's good to hear opinions of others. Now, as we're getting close to wrapping up the show here, I want to open the floor up for others who may not have had a chance to ask Todd and Scott any specific questions that we haven't covered. Rob, have you got anything sort of in your head that you want to run by them?
I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing
with all the stuff.
The hard work shows.
I think Barb. Well, I think Barb having them come up with an elevator pitch, kind of that brings it into focus. There's
it distills it down.
Yeah, it really does.
It needs to be distilled, because I'm sorry. At one point, I started wandering. My mind started wandering away, because there's just so much you're putting out there. It's very detailed. It's great stuff. But when you're trying to sell somebody who isn't as ingrained in this as you are, you need to distill it down. And so that's not a question. That's advice that I'm trying to give from an outside source here, is that I think you need to do more of that in order to and then once you sell somebody on the idea, then you can start getting more into the depth of it. And once you got to make the initial sale, and then to clinch that sale, come in with more of the detail. You got to have You got to have a hook. You got to have some really simple hook to pull them in, and then you sell them. Then you really reel them completely in with the details and how much depth you.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's so many entry points where sometimes it's over. Do we enter here?
It's overwhelming. It really is.
One thing we learned
I love what you've done. The whole idea is great and all that, but it's just so much to try and absorb.
One thing we learned from going to a lot of conventions, and those of us who pitched our comic book projects to publishers and so on, we learned very quickly that when you just have a couple of minutes of somebody's attention, the quicker you can relate the content, the easier you're going to be to sell it. Now, a lot of times,
if somebody walking by, you got
to grab them and hold them. And I've
what are you going to grab them with? What are you going to grab
Marvel and DC? Even when the product isn't even done, it's just a pitch. They want to know right away. Give me the TV guide summary of it, and that's so valuable to have. I want to jump over to Aaron. You've been very quiet tonight.
I think I'm with Rob. I think there's a few. I could say cardinal sins, maybe one, and I even see this a little bit in the comic pages you're showing. Now, there's no words, but from the comic pages, you have told us a lot tonight. But nobody likes to be told things; they want to show. So the difference between show and tell, you're telling a lot with a lot of names, Kuma, Anthros, whatever. To me, who's just seen this today, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
When I doesn't mean anything to me, you have so many seconds to get them to care. And if you don't get them to care, click, I'm on to the next thing.
Yep.
You need a face to the campaign. You have a great set of characters. Pick one. Look at Street Fighter. Everybody know Street Fighter?
Yep.
When you think of Street Fighter, who do you think of? Ryu.
Mortal
Kombat. Yeah, Mortal Kombat.
Yep.
Who do you think of? Sub-Zero.
M. Bison.
And Bison.
No.
Yeah, but still,
I'm sorry.
think that you have a face to that world. You have all these characters, but there's one that carries that campaign. One character.
It reminds me of Princess of Amber.
Yeah, look at the
Princess
Avatar
of Amber. Corwin is the one who brings you in. He's
exactly.
the one.
And I can.
Out, you see what I'm saying?
I can vouch for. I've seen the what's coming. And they've issue number 1 starts off with the core characters. And tonight we've all seen
one character.
Yeah, tonight we've all seen the behind the scenes, which is kind of the point of world building.
Yeah.
We wanted to see we want to see the expansive. They have created this, and it's in their brains, and it is on paper. And so really, like if they were coming to a publisher, they could kaboom drop that 10-pound binder on their desk. But
that's
pretty real. That's pretty real.
But got to hook them first.
For the readers,
it's going to overwhelm the editor. Look at the greatest ensemble movies ever. Lord of the Rings. Who's the main character?
Frodo.
Samwise.
Aragorn.
Samwise.
But the main character that hooked you in is Frodo.
The ring. The ring.
Avatar thing.
Precious.
Jake Sullivan. You have to bring in one character. You have. That's Star Wars. Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
He brings you into that world. You don't know anything. You're seeing that world through his eyes. The stuff you have is great for a card game, and I could see. I didn't realize it was a game. In fact, when I initially saw this today, I didn't even understand what I was looking at. I know it looked interesting. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was a game. I saw a bunch of characters, and that was only the link that Dean gave me. So that was one link. I had no idea this was a game. Not a clue. And I didn't even really know it was a comic book until I scrolled down. But again, even with the comic book, I didn't know what I was looking at.
It's a little overwhelming. It is a little overwhelming.
I'm not trying to go out because I think you have great stuff. I just think
I agree.
I love your website.
It's wonderfully done.
It's very well done. I think overall,
the character do that. The Rhino character, people like him, make him your main face.
Yeah,
the visual hook. You know, people respond to other human beings. This is the thing. I like worlds too and stuff, but people don't respond to world building. They respond to people. Put a person in your world, and
people are
and boom.
characters. Characters. It can be an
it can be an anthro character, but maybe
exactly.
yeah.
And then
but
explore
all
the
good
world.
points.
Yeah.
All very, very good points. Before we run out of time here, overall, I want to thank Scott
thank you guys
for their time.
Yeah.
Everybody give them a hand. Really giving us a very, very good description of a vast and rich world. I want to thank Scott for bringing them to our attention. Thank you, Scott.
I found it especially fascinating how you're going about this, because it's a whole different perspective on what we're doing. That is absolutely riveting for me. Because I got my own book. I'm like, how are you guys doing it?
The story of what you're doing is as interesting as the story that you're doing.
So, for us, anyway.
To us,
for
we're learning,
people
a lot of the mechanics of promotion from you, and all those years are paying off because you're getting somewhere, and we're all headed in that direction.
And this was the epitome of world building, because our topic was world building, and you guys, man, what
you nailed it.
Nailed it.
Like I said,
thank you. Can I inquire?
Like I said before, a bunch of us are old comic pros, and we're used to having everything done for us.
Oh yeah, we're divas, spoiled. Right, Barb? A long time.
Well, I've never had to do my own promotion before and stuff like that. So this is all.
But this is part of it. Promotion's part of it, and that being said, that segues into promoting our latest Silverline Fantastic Fall Frenzy, which you see on the screen there.
Who came up with that name?
It's pretty cool.
Wow, Barb.
That's a Barb name. That's fantastic.
Big
Barb.
brain on Barb.
Good job.
Just like Make Mine Silverline.
That was yours too.
Well, my major was advertising design, so
See, there you go. There you go. It came into play, and as we all like to say before we sign off, we all like to end with our motto.
Thank you, Scott and Todd.
We
make mines.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Make mine.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Make mine Silverline.
Make mine Silverline.
I'm Pat Broderick. Make mine Silverline.